Excellent. Question?
Hi, thank you guys so much for coming out. I'm Mimi Verdunk, and I'm a sophomore, my bad, a sophomore finance major here. I just had a question about risk, and you guys all have had like some degree of risk in what you've done. You risked your whole job, you started from the bottom and tried to work your way up. You were a woman in a man's field, and you kind of changed the face of, the whole industry, really, of soccer. So I wanted to know how you guys mitigate risk and kind of how you get over the fear of failure.
I didn't have an option.
I didn't either.
I didn't either. I'll start out with that because, as I said, even though I'm a professional and a businesswoman, my family came first. And so I quit and I stopped. And, it's something that you have to believe in yourself and believe that you will accomplish your goals, and you still have to be focused. But I had a family, and just like each of these gentlemen, when we relocated, my husband's a physician. He took a fellowship, which means that's going back to school. And we're looking at us. We had 2 children very young, trying to figure out how we were going to pay for a new pair of shoes because they're growing. We have all this education between the 2 of us, both doctors, and we're trying to figure that out. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to sit here worrying about my children. I'm getting out and going to do something about it. And so the opportunities afforded me, I took the risk to go and say, this is what I want and how I want it. And they could say no, but I adopted a philosophy, I'm going to make them tell me no, as opposed to me telling me no. And by the way, each of the jobs I took in sports was because of my husband, because I had told the people no, and he convinced me to turn it around and say yes, but make it mine, make it work for me, as opposed to giving in. So you don't want to look back and have any regret that you didn't make the effort. You might have to make some adjustment to it. And yes, you might fall, but the falling isn't the scary part. Sometimes it's scarier to get up and try again. But you must not quit, and each time you just look up and get up.
I have a series of many chess sets in various offices of mine. The chess sets are about think before you do, look 3 moves out. So it became philosophical, because I was never really ending up being a good chess player, but it became philosophical. And so the risk mitigation was another way of looking at it is respect the enemy. So if you're going to do anything, respect the person you're about to speak to. If you want a favor from someone, really understand their plight, understand everything about them, understand their competitors, understand everything if it's in the business world, so that you respect. You look up to them as if they're significant and you're about to do something that might put you at risk. But if you actually behaviorally understand who's their competitors, their peers at the same level, you'll understand they're frightened of somebody else eating their lunch as well. So if you end up gaining enough respect for who you're going to go to, who you're going to speak with, indirectly you're nominalizing the risk exposure because you're thinking about several moves in. So that's hopefully a little bit of help.
I want to take the second half of your question and the fear of failure part of that question. And I guess I'll be the guy to acknowledge that, fear of failure is still part of who I am. In my life, fear of failure has been a great motivator. But I will tell you that fear of failure early in my career was a negative. It had a spiritual and emotional negativity about it. Fear of failure, wanting to be good and succeed and excel at the work that you're doing, left in the wrong proportions can be detrimental. But that being afraid or being fearful, for me, I can't speak for anybody else, sometimes that's just part of the package. I'm trying something dangerous. I'm trying something risky. It might not go well. It could go badly. And, bad things could happen. And, having a reasonable amount of fear is a natural instinct when trying things that are a little bit dangerous and sometimes a little bit risky. And so, but not allowing that fear to turn into not doing. not allowing that fear to turn into not doing it. So for me, I found to accept that, okay, being a little fearful about a risky thing that I'm trying, something that has high risk, high reward, whatever. Being a little fearful is just part of my personal makeup. It's just trying to get it in the right balance so that I don't allow my fear to affect how I behave, toward people and others and the things and the decisions that I make.
I would say in the investment world, the two most important things, forget all they teach you, the two most important things that you need to understand is the trade-off between risk and reward. And if the reward outweighs the risk, then it was a good investment, whether it's an investment of time, whether it's investment of money or whatever. And so my philosophy when it comes to risk is I only take risks on things that I can have some control over the outcome. Taking a risk on whether I'm going to continue to have this job or not, or quit in a year from now. I knew, okay, here's what I need to do. I need to get a part-time job in order to cover in order to be able to pay the mortgage. By the way, I didn't lose that house. I got a part-time job unloading boxes for a trucking company. I waited tables on the weekend, and I spent all of my extra time learning the business and really going out there and hustling. Now, that developed some bad habits. There was a period for almost about 10 or 15 years where I literally slept about 2.5 to 3 hours a night. I do not advise that, by the way. Sleep is very important. I learned that the hard way. But yeah, you have to think about calculated risk. It's like what Ed talked about with chess sets. I always tell people my mother taught me how to drive. And the way she taught me how to drive was never look at the car in front of you. Always look at the car, two cars, and the three cars ahead of you. And if you watch what they're doing, you can't help but see the car in front of you. But you'll have an idea of exactly what they're going to do. So just understand risk and make that decision, does the reward outweigh it?
So if I could, be shy. Fear is a shyness. It's really respect for what you don't understand. And it's basically pacing you to examine. Now, you can let it overwhelm you, or you can have it as a tool. So let's make it into a tool. And I'm going to give you a phrase that maybe you could use or others can use, because it's one that I used over and over. Be smart enough to know you're never smart enough. And in understanding that, then you're constantly going to be absorbing, communicating, working collaboratively with other people. And in the humility of it, it will actually start to dissipate some of the fears.